Snatchers, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, the music podcast of the gods. I don't know where that came from. I'm Peter, every man with no plan. Here with me, as always, is my team, my squadron, my compatriots. We've got Brett.
Get on the boat, the banana boat.
We've got Patrick.
Sprockets.
And we've got Drew.
Never have I been more happy to be last on this lineup because now I can go into a diatribe of what damn religion are the gods of that religion listening to us four yahoos talk about music.
Not the best one, no.
Also, I would like to ride on the banana boat. It's mostly to just hang out with Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, and LeBron James because that'd be pretty dope.
Yes. I do predict that when you get married, Drew, it's going to resemble the Dwayne Wade Gabrielle Union wedding, complete with the LeBron James stomp.
I never saw their wedding, and now I have to.
Now you kiss the bride, and then they did a full on NBA handshake with a LeBron stomp.
God damn it.
So let it be known my roommate's cat just invaded my safe space and is above my head. So video viewers get a show of old Chippy.
Yeah.
Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union are how all married couples should act, apparently.
Yes.
From everything I've seen of their videos on Snapchat and hearing about what their wedding was like, that's hilarious. If you make a shit ton of money, you should be a ridiculous human being. Look at Terry Crews.
Yes. But that being said, we're talking about music because this is what this podcast is about. We're talking about music, and the provider of the music is this week is the one who's being invaded by feline intruders. Brett, what do you got for us this week?
Not only do I have a British short hair, but I brought an album from 1978 from the German electronic music band Kraftwerk, The Man-Machine.
The Man-Machine. The Man-Machine.
Yes, that one.
Yes. Patrick, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I know Kraftwerk are very German and very much one of the earliest users of electronic musical instruments and synthesizers and drum machines. I've heard probably a Kraftwerk song or two in my day, but I'm not super familiar with them. I just sort of know they exist and kind of what they are on the surface.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
As a guy who will regularly find the band, get really into them, and then go backwards and try to find the first influences of that band. When I got really into punk, I started looking into the late 70s, early 80s, New York Dolls, the Clash were the originators of that. I may have gotten into Daft Punk, and I may have done that, and ended up on a certain express that may have been trans-European in nature. So I may have been sort of familiar with the band.
Mm-hmm. Brett, how would you describe Kraftwerk musically? What would be the themes elements that make up this album?
I'll start off by saying I am by no means an expert in the history of Kraftwerk, and I'm surely not an expert in vintage digital music equipment, or analog for that matter, but I do have a passion for Synth-Pop and early electronic music. I am of the religion of the Sprung, and Der Sprung comes from Germany, I believe. I believe it originated here. The barrier to entry was so much greater than today to make this kind of music. Like any kid with his MacBook could probably make a functional copy of what we listen to here. But once upon a time, my jazz teacher was talking to me about Mellotrons. You know, the Mellotrons were those keyboards that had cassette decks. When you hit a key, it would play a tape. Well, there was an improvement that that happened about the time that he stopped being in the Mellotron business, and that was called the Orchestron. That was used on this album. Instead of using cassette tapes for the keys, it had an optical disc. And you would play sounds off an optical disc. This is the 70s, kids. Optical discs. Pretty crazy for the 70s. They made very effective use on this album of that and on other albums. Voice synthesis was used on this. I don't know if you guys saw that one happen. It did have its limitations, which I'll talk about later, but it was an affecting tool. The rest, yes, the entire package of what we got in this album is a bunch of very beautifully woven beats, groovy ambient sounds, skilled, precise musicianship that you would expect from a band of this time and place. And these guys were synth nerds. Their precision is the name of the game. So once we get into the song specifically, I can break down a few other things, but I'm curious to see what these other guys picked out of this bee's nest.
Patrick, what were the themes elements that caught your attention on the Mensch-Maschine?
Themes and elements: vocoders and electric drums. Lots of vocoder. This is very foundational to electronic music. I saw some comparison to calling them like the Beatles of electronic music, and I feel like they're pre-Beatles. They're like the what was happening in rock and roll in the 50s. Then the Beatles showed up and made it so everybody loved it. This is like just before somebody figured it out. There's so many good ideas, but they did not yet have the technology and the understanding of it to quite get it to what we all know and love as electronic music, if you're like me and like some of that. Like Drew said, there is so much of a Daft Punk, like you can see the direct line between these guys and Daft Punk. Like you basically take Kraftwerk and disco and early house and you have Daft Punk. And in a really, like, you get to hear like the stuff that led to that. I will say they are real good with a vocoder, especially considering they were one of the first people to ever use one and use it in music and use it a lot. And I kind of wonder if like people hearing vocoder for the first time was kind of like that moment the first time they heard like a distorted guitar on a record. Like it's that kind of a like, wait, what the fuck is this? This is different than everything I've ever known kind of moment.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, what would be the themes elements that caught your attention?
The thing when talking about Kraftwerk, and especially the albums like the one I alluded to earlier, the Trans-Europe Express, and this one, the Man-Machine, and those, especially that like late 70s, early 80s Kraftwerk, it's hard to convey the importance going forward. I think like Patrick said, there's allusions in some interviews and some writing about Kraftwerk that compare them to the Beatles, and my take on it is this: if you talk to an audio engineer about like recording like a band and recording live instruments in the studio, and you talk to them about a band like the Beatles or a band like Zeppelin, they're going to be able to talk to you at length about what they did in a studio that was so different from their contemporaries at the time. The weird hangings in a giant loft that Zeppelin did for their drums, or the weird time that the Beatles spent for Sgt. Pepper. Stuff like that is just something that you can go on and like talk about the importance of. And Kraftwerk, what they did and the mark that they left on not only synth-pop and not only electronic music, but also on things like hip-hop is just crazy, right? Like it's the samples that people have used from Kraftwerk are amazing. The thing about this record is that it's so incredibly well done. And I guess the word you could use, and it being stereotypical because they're German, but the engineering that went into this record, the precision that went into this record, the use of the electronic instruments, the vocoders, that arrangement knowledge that came from them. They're a band that is very secluded when they create, and they are known for that. it's just they're very focused on their craft, and it shows. And those arrangements and that instrumentation, you can hear. I said Daft Punk, Deadmau5, any like modern like electronic music, techno music, and owes a lot to Kraftwerk. The driving rhythms, the robotic sense of lyrics, the synthy melodies that come through. It's something that is awesome. It's really fun for me too, because like I've been getting more into like when I do listen to electronic music, I've been getting more into like the outrun and retro wave sort of thing. So like going back again to something like Kraftwerk, who I haven't listened to in a long time, and like remembering like, oh yeah, like a lot of it came from that 80s sort of electronic sound, which is just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, looking at this picture of a freaking vocoder that was custom built for them, like you see on their Wikipedia article, you go over there. That's just wild. Like, that's just cool. Like, just to look at that, and you see those dials and those knobs, and you can imagine the magic that was made off of that. That's just dope. That's some dope ass shit right there. Brett, let's talk about some key tracks. What would be some of the key tracks to zero in on this album?
Well, probably the one of the most famous songs off of this album would be "The Robots." Opens up, and I lost my page. It's got this crazy low bass line that sort of hangs out, and it's got like really crazy vocals. But one thing that I really, really like is how they have that sound that's similar to a floppy disk reading. It's pretty cool, and they throw it in with pretty great effect. Speaking of of voice synthesis and stuff, Space Lab, or I'm going to hit this one quickly because the letter B was unavailable with the voice synthesis. So this song sounded like Space Leg the whole time. It's pretty cool. I had some fun with it, but The Model is the song of the album that's been covered by a million people, from Big Black or the Cardigans or Rammstein. You run into it in the weirdest of places. Rammstein is not really the farthest from the tree that the apple could drop, but it's a pretty simple song with very robotic, slightly lifeless lyrics.
Yeah.
It screams late 70s Euro, and it's a fun trip back in time.
Yeah.
It's like this album was a hit in the UK like crazy. This was an album that people not so much here in America thought was awesome, but like this is the fact that the song "The Model" was released as a single and took off in the English speaking world is kind of amazing.
Yeah. It was covered. Look at this list. It was covered by Big Black and Snake Finger. It was also covered by, this is the list, Hans Kroger, the Cardigans, the Members, Terror Vision with the Childata, Carter USM, Canasta, the Divine Comedy, Warm Jets, Electric Six, Yatka, Balanescu Quartet, Hikashu, Ride, Chris Whitley, Aviator Dro, Elakalastit, I don't know how this pronounced, Zoot Woman, Scala and the Kalakny Brothers, Messer Chups, Demolition Group, Wunderkid, Treble Spankers, Fink, Tickled Pink, Tickled Pink, Super Eternus, and the Ensemble of Shadows, Supernaut, as well as the French version of a Canadian by Lola Drutronic. It keeps going on and on. It's like this whole paragraph of like people have covered that song. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Space Lab. You really like the vocoder is front and center, and it's just kind of a cool song. I wasn't sure it wasn't Spaceman sometimes because again, like the tech was super new and super like them trying to figure it out. And Metropolis, which has a spectacular intro, just with these great synth swells. And then as you get into the song, it kind of has like this 80s German car commercial Knight Rider sort of vibe. Like it sounds like Car at Night. And that's a weird thing, but it's like that's the visual I get out of it. It very much has like a traveling through the city at night with only headlights and the city lights around you. It was just a cool sounding song.
Wait, which song was that? I missed the
Metropolis.
Metropolis.
Okay. Guess what I said.
Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
The robots. The robots is one of the songs that if I was going to introduce somebody to Kraftwerk and why they're awesome, the robots would be what I would use. It has a little bit of everything. It starts out really strong, it ends really strong. It's a great first track. I will agree with the driving at night bits of Metropolis. The notes I put in here, like if you want to understand like the blueprint of like that outrun like retro wave thing that's happening right now in music, Metropolis is it to me. And what I said, it sounds to me like if I'm driving at night with the city lights whizzing by, wondering when I'm going to enter the computer to fight the master control program, this is the song that comes on the radio. The Man-Machine I have to list here for a couple of reasons. One, you name an album after one of the songs on the album, it better carry the weight of the album. And the Man-Machine does, for one. It does it pretty well. It ends really well. It was also sampled by 2 Live Crew. And that's fucking awesome.
2 Live Crew.
Don't believe me? Look it up. Because I did. Because I was like, wait a second. I know this was sampled somewhere. I know this was sampled hip-hop
Cowards in Broward get sprayed and dayed.
I think I've told you guys. You know the joke that with the Scott Johnson, the thing about old hip hop. And the chicken tastes like wood.
Yeah.
I figured out. I mentioned it probably in private conversation, but I'll mention it on the show. The main thing that bothers me about 2 Live Crew, and I was always trying to put my finger on it, is basically I would sum them up as, and the pussy tastes like wood.
Yes.
They were the same shitty old hip hop, except they were dirty. And they said naughty sex words. The only reason they were relevant is because they were banned. Because they sucked.
Oh, yeah, no. If they wouldn't have gotten banned, I don't think they get radio play.
Yeah, they sucked. And Uncle Luke is terrible. He's not. I don't understand why he's
says
the godfather.
A man from Miami.
Yeah, I don't understand why he's so revered in this country, in this city.
I had to help a client today that had Pitbull as her background picture and had a picture of her with Pitbull on her cell phone. And all I could think of was how disappointed you would be if you worked in my precinct and had to deal with this lady, Petey.
Yeah.
That's literally my entire interaction with her. The entire 15 minutes, I was just thinking, Petey would be so disappointed in this woman.
We can confirm he's at least Mr. Nationwide.
Yeah. But is he on your side?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
Petey, we took the swing at the easy one.
Yeah. I will say I do plan on taking Dahlia back.
Okay.
It doesn't belong to Pitbull. It belongs to all Cubans. Dale que tu puedes. But yes, moving on from shitty Miami rappers. Let's talk about some conclusive thoughts. Bring it back around the horn. Patrick, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album, on Kraftwerk?
I'm going to make a tortured automotive metaphor because cars are my other thing, and this is Germany. Kraftwerk is the E21 BMW 3 Series. It is not the most beloved. It is not the best 3 Series, but its very existence allowed the E30 to exist. By it creating the idea of the small rear-wheel drive modern German sedan after the 2002 and new class stuff. It set up, what is regarded as one of the greatest cars of all time, the E33 series. This is what Kraftwerk did. They are the epic setup man who built the foundation that all electronic music is built on top of. It is not the best electronic music, but if you are interested in electronic music and you're like Drew and occasionally me who like goes back and is like, okay, where did this come from? If you're like, where did Daft Punk get this idea? Or even if you're like, where did Skrillex get this idea? It's worth listening to because...
I like Skrillex.
I know, I had a moment with him and now I've realized he's a hack and he has like 4 good songs. It happens.
Skrillex killed for a minute and I'm bitter about that. Just from the K-pop guy.
So it's very foundational, and at the time it probably was utterly groundbreaking. Now it sounds very much like something before we figured out synth-pop in the 80s. But it's very important. I feel like it's if you are a student of music as a whole, this is one of those books you're supposed to read in high school kind of thing.
It's like The Outsiders.
Yeah, it's like The Outsiders. It's not the best book ever, but it's pretty good. It's enjoyable. Tells a good story. You should probably go check it out. It's, you have time in your life to go listen to this album. Yep.
Stay Gold, Pony Boy. Speaking of Stay Gold, Neon Bunny's new album is out, so everybody should check that out. Drew, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
I think that I think it's obvious that Kraftwerk is something that I very much enjoy. It's one of those bands where they will fall by the wayside by the new and the shiny and whatever else that people are listening to at the time, but their importance can't be understated in my opinion. They're something that is just it's fun. It's just fun music. It bends the experimental from time to time, and I think it's better for it. I think that good composition, strong composition can get you a lot of places, and one of the places it can get you is being one of the more influential bands. You can create almost an entire genre just by being that good at what you do, and I think that's what Kraftwerk is. If you have any inkling for liking electronic music, synth poppy music, if you really liked the TV show Knight Rider, I think this is a band that you should probably listen to. Like, I think they're pretty fantastic. If you think you like the 80s and you haven't listened to much Kraftwerk, go get The Man in the Machine, because
the band
it might have been right. It might have been right before the 80s, but like, this is the sound that like spurred the 80s electronic music
the
sound.
Mensch-Maschine.
If you like the theme song to Miami Vice and you haven't listened to Kraftwerk, go.
Yes.
Do the thing that you should be doing.
The Mensch-Maschine.
Fix
Brett.
your problem.
Brett, what would be your conclusive thoughts on the Mensch-Maschine?
Well, I completely understand that this album isn't going to be for everyone. And even for me, this is a time and place album. But I think it's something everyone should hear and understand. It took 4 guys to make electronic music back then. It's very different than what became of electronic music, but it definitely did help pave the way for the music you hear today and most of the best music that came out of the 80s. So, if you like your New Orders and your
Joy Divisions, or
yes, Joy Divisions, yes, thank you.
Depeche Mode.
The Depeche Mode and all them fools.
Well, when it hit the UK, and then those UK chumps started being all like, let's synth this emo-y kind of sounding music up, and it became beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Mensch-Maschine from Kraftwerk. The fantastic Germans in fantastic lipstick.
There was a German that works at my Geek Squad precinct that was happy whenever I put Kraftwerk on. So there's that.
So you know what? There's that. Some nice little naturalistic pride for him. Yeah. But yes, Kraftwerk. Those are our thoughts on the album. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews. We get to our haiku reviews, where we sum it all up in poetic form. Patrick, let's start with you. Patrick, what is your haiku?
So influential, so many synthesizers, so very German.
Mm-hmm. I'll do my haiku. Original maestros of that beep boop pop music. Funky computer. Drew. What your haiku?
One I literally just found out that I deleted. Okay. A synth-pop beauty from far lands of Germany. Influential core.
Mm-hmm. And Brett, last but not least, what is your haiku?
Blazing a new trail. Unconventional music with machine and man.
Mm-hmm. And those are our thoughts on The Man Machine by the one and only crew known as Kraftwerk. You can, of course, find this album on our Spotify playlist. You can play Record Breakers, the home game. Play along with us at home. Follow along with us. We try to keep it updated. I even put myself a little reminder on my Google Calendar every week that tells me, hey, put the new album on the playlist. And then I do it, and then I mark it done, and then it's done. So it will be up there to let you do your homework for the following week's episode. So check it out there. Speaking of the following week's episode, on that Spotify playlist, by the time you're listening to this, will be next week's album. And that is brought to you by Drew. Drew, what do you got for us next week?
Well, it's a little thing. It's a band that I'm interested to hear everybody find out what they think of it. They're a little funky. They're a little jazzy. They're real smooth. This is going to be Wolfpack with Sleepify. No.
Smooth and
That's a joke.
We're going to be doing we are going to be doing Wolfpack, but don't listen to Sleepify, the album of literally no music. We're going to be doing their newest album, Thrill of the Arts.
Mm-hmm. So look forward to that discussion next week. But that is next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at Swagger. Brett is at HibbittyBibbard, HibbittyBibbard. Drew's at XJuicerForX. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. It's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast at gmail.com. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Keep an eye out for things. Follow us on all the things on Twitch, on YouTube, Rebelli TV on YouTube. Do things. Share, like, subscribe. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Beep boop boop beep beep boop boop.
I am a robot vagina.
Beep 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 boop boop beep beep.